Hi, this is Robert Kiyosaki, and you're listening to Capital Hacking. This is the most important thing you can listen to today.
He's the one.
I have a dream.
With great power comes great responsibility.
I could do this all day.
This is it. Don't get scared now.
They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom.
Cinderella's story out of nowhere.
It's in the hole. That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Capital Hacking begins in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the big show. Josh McCown and the world famous John Edwin.
What's up, Josh? How's your day going?
Really good now that we got to do a great podcast together. Can't wait to do a few highlights of that podcast right now. So if you're listening today and you want to hear about a guy named Ben Wolff, you want to hear about a guy named Ben Wolff, especially if you're a real estate investor who's ever dabbled in Airbnb. He fits in that category of saying, I'm not doing Airbnb anymore. I'm doing boutique hotels. Now, he does it in a really fun way, and I think we dig in on his marketing company. He's a big-time social media marketer, even has a famous company, a very expensive, but great marketing company. He teaches us how that works, talks about the death of Airbnb. He said it's an arms race to add amenities, and nobody can win that race in Airbnb, so he shifted. What do you think, John?
Ben really did an amazing job, and I love where his head's at and his creativity, his resorts, the locations. You guys are going to learn so many great things. And he was referred by our good friend Brian Lubin, who made me jump in 38-degree Lake Louise up outside of Banff, Canada last week. I was trying not to go in, and then he called me some names, and I was like, okay, let me get in there. And so
you got to give it to our boy Brian Lubin. He's a good guy. We'll get him. I think he's been on this show before. He has. We'll have to get him back on, right, John? All right, guys. Brian Lubin, thanks for introducing us to the world famous Ben Wolff.
let's go. Hey guys, Ben Wolff, thank you so much for joining us. We have to give Brian Lubin, our buddy, some credit here for the connection. He's been talking so highly about you that it's great to have you on the big show. Josh, you want to take it away?
Oh, I get to go. So look, Ben, at the beginning, we always say, you and I are getting to know each other, but the audience has not yet met Ben Wolff. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, happy to. So look, I in some ways feel like I fell into hospitality. In my young 20s, I was a nightclub promoter, kind of got introduced to the hospitality scene and luxury hospitality in a lot of ways through that. Had a lot of fun, did that for a few years. And it's so interesting too, how many like promoters there are out there that become hoteliers, you know, Ian Schrager and, you know, there's a number of others as well that started off in that world and then kind of graduated into hotels, even like Tao Group, you know, Lavo and Tao, et cetera, restaurants, but then kind of graduated into hotels like the Cosmopolitan in Vegas. So, you know, I started off in the mid 20-teens, kind of got introduced to Airbnbs, short-term rentals, when that was really taking off, particularly in cities. So started building my real estate hospitality portfolio at that time. And I still had a 9 to 5. I was still, you know, working a software sales job at that time, was building up this short-term rental portfolio on the side. And it was around early 2018. And I realized I'm making more money doing less work with these short-term rentals than I am at my software sales job. And that's really kind of what gave me the push to go off on my own and focus on my real estate portfolio and my hospitality portfolio full time. So ended up really growing a management business in addition to my own portfolio. So started taking on clients who wanted to get into the short-term rental space and grew from about 8 units under management to 200 in 18 months. So by the end of 2019, we had 200 units across the country that we were managing in about a dozen cities. And a couple months later, COVID hit and, you know, rug kind of got pulled out from underneath us. A lot of our properties were in cities and, you know, obviously cities were not really getting traveled to in early COVID. So that's kind of what pushed me into outdoor, more experiential travel, what became Treehouse Hotels and, the Onera brand, where we now have 2 locations in the Texas Hill Country. So that's kind of how I got my start from early days of hospitality into actually building hotels.
No, that's awesome.
Couple questions, if I could jump in really quickly. What is a Treehouse Hotel, one? And what is Onera? Like, where did you come up with that name?
Yeah, Onera means dream in Greek. We really think of the Onera properties as you're walking into this dream sort of fantasy world, right? It's out of the hustle and bustle of daily life, sort of, brings you back to these childhood yearnings of Treehouse, right? It takes you out of the kind of adult mindset and brings, I think, some of that childlike wonder back. So for those reasons, we chose the name Onera, which means dream. And Treehouse Hotel, I like the term landscape hotel the best because it's really integrated with the natural landscape. It highlights nature. It just so happens a lot of our units are tree houses. So, folks sometimes think of us that way. And sometimes that lands quicker in terms of visualizing what you are. So we have one location in Fredericksburg, Texas, another one in Wimberley, and they have 28 and 35 units apiece. And about half of the units at both properties are elevated in some way, treehouse style.
Hey guys, it's John Vroman, founder of Front Row Dads, and you're listening to Capital Hacking, the best investment you'll make today.
Funny, I'm looking up some of the deals I had under contract in Hill Country. I had like 3 under agreement, or at least in negotiation back in 2020, because I thought that was booming back then, Ben. That was like when everybody from California wanted to live in Austin, and everybody in Austin wanted to vacation on the weekends to Hill Country. So, By the way, let's talk about that. So that I've heard kind of slowed down a bit. What have you been able to build within that ecosystem? Is there still this mass exodus from California to Austin? And is Austin still crushing the Hill Country each weekend?
Yeah, look, I think Austin's still hot. I mean, the growth rate definitely slowed down quite a bit. I think my property value doubled and then came back down to earth a little bit, but is still way up from when I bought in early 2020, right before COVID, luckily. Hill Country still, a hot destination for Austinites, people in all over Central Texas, right? Not just Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Austin. The floods, were not great this summer, obviously. Super, tragic stuff that happened with the flooding. And even though it was very localized, I think there was like a market perception that kind of put a damper on Hill Country getaways in July, August, and September. But look, I think that Fredericksburg and Wimberley are still both great markets in the Hill Country. You see a ton of high-end luxury development going up, particularly in Fredericksburg. There's like a Waldorf going in, a Kimpton. There's this massive mixed-use development. So I feel like Fredericksburg is still kind of growing up and becoming this really renowned, Southern and Texas destination. It's super quaint. I'm bullish on any market that kind of feels like you have a costume when you go there, and you got the knee-high boots and the Stetson hats is kind of the Fredericksburg costume. You see a ton of bachelorette parties and stuff like that. So and there's a lot of couples travel out that way as well. But when I first started developing in Fredericksburg, I mean, you had Fortune 500 CEOs staying at the roadside motel, in Fredericksburg. That was kind of like the best option. So we've come a long way from that, but I still think there's room to go in terms of making Fredericksburg a true luxury destination with hotels, F&B, shopping, et cetera, that caters to that audience.
And with your, you have a great perspective on that whole market. And so do you think, have any of those luxury resorts opened yet, or are they still under development? And what's going to be their impact on the Airbnb market once they open in that region?
The Albert opened. So the Albert, I think it's over 100 rooms. I don't know exactly how many, maybe somewhere around 150. That's New Waterloo. So they're South Congress Hotel, great group, love their properties, and love the Albert. It's very different from our property, obviously, which is more tucked in nature and super unique units. And I think it's a different product than a vacation rental, right? Multiple bedrooms, a kitchen, somewhere you might take your family. But the Albert's, it's an upscale hotel. It's got a fine dining restaurant. It's got a cool barbecue joint. It's got a coffee shop connected to it, a beautiful event space. And, they're ramping still, I think. But overall, I would say they're doing well. It'll be interesting to see once Waldorf and Kimpton come online, how much that impacts them. Because right now, they're kind of the only game in town in terms of upscale, true kind of hotel, event space, multiple F&B outlets, et cetera. But as of now, it seems like they're doing pretty well.
That's good. And, so you got into, I've seen some of the pictures online. You have these, but John brought it up. What's a Treehouse Hotel? You said, well, I prefer landscape. You're right. They're like tucked in, but they're like cantilevered, right? You build them in such a way where they're like, tell me about that, because here we are thinking you're a great marketer, Airbnb, and then all of a sudden you're building what look like complicated, let's say, architectural marvels in a sense. Yeah. How did you get into that? How did you get that knowledge base?
So, I mean, it was like drinking from a fire hose. I mean, I don't come from this background. So I've put, I think, great people around me to help execute some of this vision that I've had. And it's always been a collaboration between me and architects, me and, my GC, who's become a partner, a true partner, and is actually a partner in the Florida project that we have, just because he's so phenomenal. His whole team is just really great at these unique builds, specifically commercial hospitality unique builds, which is rare. A guy that's going to come in on time, on budget, can give me sort of like rough conceptual pricing with very little information. It's hard to find. So we've definitely held on to him and tried to treat him and his team as well as we can. But, the cantilever thing, we only have a few units like that are true cantilever. I shouldn't say that. We have a bunch that are cantilever. We have one unit type that has a 40-foot cantilever. So that's probably
that's unbelievable.
That's probably the one that you saw. It's wild. It literally looks like it's floating, right? So the structural foundation goes 30 feet into the ground in order to support that. So that's kind of how you make that work, right? It was costly to do, but honestly, like the marketing and brand value that unit gives us is so worth the extra 50 to 100K that it costs to build that unit over any of the other treehouse style units that we built.
John, I'll bring you up to speed, since Sean and I have developed things and we're up in the Northeast where everything's micro regulated. That hill country a lot of times is no building code, right, Ben? I mean, like when you built those, how do you get permit? Do you get a permit to build that building, or do you not get a permit to build that?
So you don't get a building permit. No, you do not.
Crazy, John.
So
crazy.
We still build to IFC, right? International Fire Code, and IBC, International Building Code, right? We still follow those rules and regs, and we have to get permits for. The hardest thing in the hill country for development is water, because water is so scarce. So getting your water permit is usually the hill that you got to climb, and was particularly challenging for Wimberley because that area has a lot of trouble on the water side of things. But yeah, it does not require building permits. It's not quite as wild west as people think, but I'm sure it's easier to build in the Northeast. Like, I'm from Connecticut, I'm from the Northeast. But with all that said, like, there's no reason you can't get a treehouse permitted in the Northeast, right? It's structurally sound. In some cases, it's beneficial for us because we're way above the floodplain, and some of those units kind of touch into where the floodplain is. So with that cantilever, we can actually encroach much further into the floodplain because there's no structural support or anything like that needs to be kept out of the floodplain.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Well, your properties look super cool and like different and unusual, and that probably helps drive traffic. And where do most of your clients like find out about you?
Instagram.
Okay.
So it's interesting. Like, I didn't start out as an Instagram or social media marketer, and then I built this product that was kind of picture made for Instagram and social platforms. First, it started with influencer marketing. We had some influencers blow us up, and we did about 30 to 35% direct bookings through purely influencer marketing when that was kind of early days of Reels, when influencers were really blown up in 2022, right after we opened. And then in 23, I wanted to double and triple down on content just because we saw the power of it. Tried to hire an outside agency and just realized that like your typical hotel marketing agency and social media agency is like not prioritizing the content, and they're not like true content people. So they're sending like a junior employee once a quarter with an iPhone or just relying on us for content. And so it became pretty clear pretty quick that we got to build this internally if we actually want to move the needle. So we built out a team that became OASI, which is my now hotel marketing, content, social media, revenue management, and potentially even moving into full service hotel management company. So that all was born out of just lack of options on the hotel marketing side. And since building out that team, we've gotten really good at content. We've gone viral a bunch of times. We've done like 40 million views at one of the Onera properties alone. And we do about 80 to 85% direct.
And do you hire like influencers on Instagram to go to these places?
We do. So I have kind of a strong belief now when it comes to influencers. I think they fall on a bell curve, and you want the ends of the spectrum. You want like the best in market influencers that cost you $3, $4, $5 a pop, but they're very well referred. They're almost surely going to at least give you a 10x ROI. And there's a few of those in the hill country that we work with over and over again. Can't work with them more than, say, once every year or two, just because there's audience fatigue, and you get your biggest pop the first time you have them out, usually. And then there's the freebies, right? The ones that'll comp stay. They're creating great user-generated content. There's some audience transfer. You'll get some followers from it, and it's really just costing you a cleaning if there's not any revenues displacement. If you're unlikely to be 100% occupied on a given day, usually midweek. So that's how we still leverage influencers. But the vast majority of what we do today is our own content.
Hi, this is Melanie McCallan. Josh and I are just so grateful for the many investors who have already joined us at Accountable Equity. Accountable Equity is so much more than a capital group. It's really a community of accredited investors that want to learn and grow together. I just want to personally invite you, if you want to find out more about this type of investment and see if it's right for you and your family, please visit us at accountableequity.com.
Hey, it's Hal Elrod, author of The Miracle Morning, and you're listening to Capital Hacking. Enjoy.
If I can jump in, John, that's awesome, buddy. You're right. That is not how most marketing groups work. They don't heavily focus on content, even though they say they want to. So how do you do that on scale? How many clients would you say you have right now?
Frankly, it's hard to scale. I've found it's hard to scale creative. And we've actually decided for right now, we want fewer, better clients. Yeah. So we're focusing on bigger clients, have bigger budgets. We can send out videographers every month if we want to with models. We can spend a ton of time on pre-production, post-production, script writing, all this kind of stuff, right? Concept generation, finding out trends. So these are clients that are paying us, 10, 20, 30 grand a month. But we're driving tons and tons of traffic to their resort. We have one of these clients, Alila Maria. It's a 4-star luxury hotel in Encinitas, so outside San Diego, and right on the coastline, beautiful property. And, before us, they had a typical agency running their social. It was pretty, kind of looked like a magazine page, and they were generating about 300 or so link taps a month. So people that went into their Instagram profile page and actually clicked on the hotel, booking website. So since we took over in a few months of ramp, they're now generating about 10,000 link taps a month. Oh, so that's an order of magnitude. Yeah, we're over 25x. So it's, in my mind, it's kind of binary, right? It's like go all in on this thing, and really invest in it, make it a core part of your strategy, or just have a pretty page that, will add credibility if someone were to stumble upon your page.
Ben, you got to ask the fun question. You and I have been doing various things in our lives. And you ever heard the cobbler's family has no shoes? Have you ever heard that joke?
Yes.
It means the people who make shoes often don't get shoes for their kids in time. But is it like that when you own a fantastic marketing group like that? Or do you apply that much to your own?
It's so funny that so I think the better example, we definitely do to our own properties when we fully control them, but that's a whole other story. One of our properties, we exited to a public REIT, so we don't fully call the shots on that one anymore. But any property we fully control, then we're all in on this style of marketing that we run. But the better example for me is my personal page. So my personal Instagram page was super neglected for years, right? And it's silly because that's one of the first things people are going to look at, or where they're going to find me. And we'd invested a lot in LinkedIn, Twitter, more written content, which we did really well with. I have a newsletter. We don't do any outbound. We don't do any ads. We might start doing some of that stuff, but to date, all of our clients have come inbound through personal brand. But what I wasn't investing in my Instagram, which is crazy because that's most of what we do for hotel clients. So we started investing that about 3-4 months ago, and we've started to hit our stride, and went from 3,000 to now 20,000 followers, getting a lot more engagement. And now I'm starting to get inbound collab requests almost as an influencer, right? They're asking me to showcase their property on my page.
That's hilarious.
Which is a nice kind of foot in the door to maybe more marketing services down the road.
I was going to ask you real quick, and I'll let John take the next. So you mentioned Instagram a lot. You actually mentioned LinkedIn. You're one of the few, but I'm excited to hear about that. But you didn't mention YouTube. So YouTube Shorts, things like that, not a part of the strategy?
So we do cross post to YouTube Shorts. It's not a core part of the strategy. I really want to do long form YouTube. I think that hotel marketing and social media is blue ocean. If go search on YouTube, hotel marketing, it is shocking how bad the content is. And so I think there's a big opportunity there to sort of be the market leader on YouTube and drive a ton of traffic that way. It's just long form takes a lot of time, right? It's a big investment. So it's on the roadmap, but not a today thing. I am starting a podcast with a new loyalty rewards program group called Journey that Onera is a part of. Journey, focuses on upscale, experiential, independent properties. It's actually co-founded by Brian Kelly, the points guy, and then this other guy, John Sutton, who was in, tech private equity for years and is also a developer. Great platform. And we're starting a podcast with a few other travel and hospitality sort of authority figures with personal brands. So that's kind of my foot in the door to YouTube and being on that platform more.
Hey everybody, it's Robert Helms, host of the Real Estate Guys radio program. And when you're not listening to our show, make sure you're tuned to Capital Hacking. You're going to dig it.
Fantastic. So we have a couple minutes left. I wanted to talk about, I think, more of a new project that you're starting out and you're working on, Baya Hotels with our buddy. Can you talk a little bit to that?
Yeah. So first off, I mean, I met Brian. So I both met Brian and my lead partner on the project, who's actually based in Miami and found the site and did a lot of the initial like zoning work required to make this a go, Steve Turk. So I met both of them as guests on their podcasts. So maybe we'll do some work together at some point. I don't know. But yeah, so that's how I met both of them. And Brian loved what I was doing, was super interested in getting involved, says he gets pitched real estate deals all the time. And it just never really, most of the stuff doesn't excite him, but the kind of experiential travel that we're doing was super interesting to him. And so he wanted to jump in as a partner, help push Baya, help with some of the capital raising, the marketing, you know, all the things that he's really good at. So we brought him in for that. Baya is, I really think, the first of its kind in the US. So it's a tropical landscape resort. Think like Costa Rica or Bali vibes, but stateside, literally 45 minutes from Miami Airport. So you can take a domestic flight or, you know, drive to destination for South Floridians and get there within 45 minutes of Miami Airport. It's also 45 minutes to the Keys. So it's kind of right in between those two, quite close to Everglades National Park. And it's in this area that is just a booming agrotourism, you know, tropical plant nursery and exotic fruit hub, not only for the US, but even for the world in some ways. Like I know places that have resorts in the Bahamas that source their plants from this area of Florida called the Redlands. So that's where Baya is. It's on a 25-acre exotic fruit farm. And we have these super organic, unique units, of course, Bali-style bungalows tucked into this jungle vibe, right? It's a permaculture fruit forest. That's all all these different trees mixed together. You know, grottos, streams.
What kind of fruit is this exotic fruit farm? Like
mame sapote, longan, lychee, sugar apple, papaya, a lot of stuff you guys probably haven't heard of, right? But it's cool, and we're going to educate people. The F&B is going to incorporate a lot of that into the menu, obviously, as well. And I think that, you know, so it's this blend of outdoor experiential wellness and agritourism. So it's kind of those three things all mashed up, which are all huge growing trends in travel and hospitality.
Hey, I have one technical question for you, and that is boutique hotels, which seems like you've moved away from Airbnb. Am I right? Or are you still doing the Airbnbs? Are you buying them? Are you managing them? Or have you moved?
I have fully moved on from what I would call commodity Airbnbs, or even this like race, like this amenities arms race for Airbnbs, right? You know, the pickleball court and the pool and the you know, you got 2 golf holes in the backyard now. And I mean, that stuff still works. It's just like, I don't know. It feels like an arms race, right?
It is.
It doesn't feel as scalable and sort of sustainable. And my take on short-term rentals is that there's no real brand loyalty or value. A lot of these big short-term rental companies, Sonder, all the Domio, right? A bunch of them have gone under. Like they place this big bet on that people care about short-term rental brands. I don't think people care. I think they want the best value for the best price. And whether it's Sonder or Avatar or whatever brand, they don't care. Whereas a hotel brand with, you know, a multi-unit location, various amenities, maybe multiple locations, I think that, you know, people are more interested in connecting with and following that type of brand.
We appreciate you, man. Ben, great feedback here.
Yeah. Where can our listeners connect with you and follow up with questions and just see all the cool stuff you guys are doing?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on, guys. Great to chop it up with you. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Ben Wolff, 2 Fs, Instagram. I am Ben Wolff. I have a newsletter, so hop into that if you'd like to get my weekly sort of musings on travel and hospitality and where things are going. And yeah, we're launching this podcast called This Week in Hospitality that's going to launch in mid-November.
Awesome. Congratulations, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
Love it. Thank you. Cheers.
Damn straight. We just got buddy. We got to the end of another great show. And everyone listening right now, you're the family and friends. Thanks for staying till the end.
That was so fun. And hey, hit the like, hit subscribe. We're here to serve you guys. That's why we're doing this show. Josh is not paying me. I'm doing this off of my quote unquote sweat equity because we want to make a difference in your life. And then that ripple effect will continue to touch the world.
Hey, amen, brother. Please check us out on capitalhacking.com, all the social media threads. And yes, I know you've probably already sent this episode to one of your best friends. Thank you. We love you. Just go right into your iPhone, hit the plus symbol. We'll talk to you later. See you next week.
Share.